Good evening, everybody. Today on Gatekeepers, we're going to be talking about two of my favorite places: Jaide's basement, where I think all games should be held, or your local game shop. I used to work, maybe at not your local game shop, but I used to work at game shops.
You're right there?
I had Tourette's. That's what
Having a
that was. It was
seizure?
horrible Tourette's. Okay. Anyways, maybe not your local
T-ball
shop, but I
seizure?
used to work at shops. I'm not the only person in this panel that at one point was a not full time, but part time, whatever time, always a good time, store DM. That would be the guy next to me, Shadow. He's done this dig a whole lot longer than I have. But today we're going to be talking about that. We're going to talk about the pros, the cons. Is it better to have one's game at your friend's house, your house? Or is it just easier to have a game at the local game shop if the game shop A is able to host it and it's a cool place to be? I have my opinions. I'm sure the panel has their opinions. So we're going to share them as we do with Gatekeepers, our opinions and stories for examples, and that's where we're going to go. All right, I got some questions. You guys got some answers?
Yeah.
Always. That's what we're here for.
Right.
Yeah.
Now,
I mean, I was told there'd be punch and pie, but as I can see, there will be no punch and pie.
I can give you a punch. All right. With that being said, did you guys have time to look at the very well stated and point out questions I posted on Discord?
You mean the one Jade wrote?
Actually, no, I did not write these. I actually have not even read them yet thoroughly.
Well, I know Connor didn't write them.
Yeah,
Hey! I could have.
I don't know. I mean, he posted them to me on Facebook Messenger over the weekend, and I'm like, yeah, those look great. I didn't get a chance to thoroughly read them because I was busy, but yeah, no. I will quickly peruse them while you're talking.
I cheated, but that's okay. It's part of the game.
What,
it's all right if you lost the game, though, too.
Were they AI written?
Oh, yeah. Okay. No, I had Max from Legion's Myths like, dude, just do this and just work them out. I'm like, okay. So.
Awesome.
All right. I'm actually in a good mood. I hope everybody out there is in a good mood.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned, though, about the topic, seeing as how, from my sources, come October, there will be no more in-store gaming because of the lockdowns. Has anybody considered or thought?
No.
Oh,
no,
yeah. Mask mandates are coming back at like the 13th or the 15th of September, and everything else will roll out right after that. And if it's like last time, there will be no in-store gaming.
Oh, interesting.
Talked to my boss.
That's news to me.
I talked to the person I work for. I talked to a local. We got 3 local shops around here. Only really 2 of them. Am I missing one?
Possibly.
Bartonville, Peoria.
I'm all about not doing it again, but I'm not everybody, and I have my own opinions and whatnot about the whole situation, but it could be a really bad thing for stores. I have a local games workshop, and when the things were happening, they would only allow 1 customer in at a time, which made it a real difficult thing to go with Jackie, my son, to look at, merchandise. It's like, even then you could only go in this little glass cubicle, and they would say, what do you want? We'll go get it, and then get the hell out of our store.
Well, if this is going to happen, and I hope it does, and I talked to local shops around here, and they're getting into the season of a lot of people coming to the shop and gaming. That's
the holidays,
between Pathfinder and D&D and every other, Flames of War,
absolutely.
They're expecting more people to be showing up at the shop because it's getting cold. But either way, so we're gonna get into this. scheduling a game to have, is it easier? Is it easier to schedule a game with preset hours that a game shop has, or is it easier to schedule a game for a house where you get there when you get there and run as long as you want? What is easier? What is more doable in people's in your minds? I'll start with Jaide.
Oh, okay. So this comes to scheduling and timing, and scheduling is one of the biggest game killers out there. If everybody can't meet up for a table, be it at a shop or a house or wherever in between, scheduling is the thing that will likely kill your games sooner than anything else. Especially if players can't all be on the same page or same schedule. That's actually something I'm dealing with right now is a lot of the players I would like to have at my table aren't available because their schedules are vastly different now than when they were when we first started gaming. People have grown up, they've gotten other jobs, or their life has taken a turn, and they have to take care of other things. And I understand that. Like, real life always comes before game, first and foremost. It's kind of my mantra at this point. But as far as like being able to schedule a game, I can go to one of my local game stores. I don't know about the other 5. But I can go to one of them and be like, hey, I'm looking at running a one shot. And the shop owner would be like, yeah, great, I want you to run a one shot. Bring in more RPGs, bring in something that's different. And I've run 2 sessions of index card RPG at the shop, and his sons enjoyed it, and I enjoyed the time there. So if you can get in at your local game store as a game master, or even as a player, and work within the store hours, awesome. Because then everybody knows what those hours are, because they're printed and posted either online or on the store. And you don't have to be reliant upon, oh, well, I would go to your house, but it's your house, not my house. Or, because I've had that happen, like where people just don't want to leave their home anymore. Or like they've become hermits, and then me trying to drag them out of their house kicking and screaming is just the end of the world. But if I say, hey, let's go to the game shop and run a session and have fun there, then it's more appealing for some reason. Except for if they're agoraphobic and they don't like people, then that's an entirely different issue.
It is. Now, I start something here quick. Start something that Scott said. By the way, hey Scott, hope you're having a good evening. That when we are talking about shops, we're not talking about being paid, be a paid DM. I recommend it to everybody if you can actually get that gig, especially in high school and college. I'm sure it'd be a great time to do it. But no, we're just talking as if, hey, Mr. Shop Owner, do you have a back room that me and my crew can use to RPG in whatever game that you decide to RPG in? Versus, hey, I got a basement with a table, grab some chairs, some pretzels, and some beer, if you're of age, and let's roll some dice. That is the question. I'm not saying one is better than the other, but each of them needs to have pros and cons, and that's what I want to talk about tonight.
And that same game store owner that I've run the game at before, he's actually offered, said, hey, if you want to charge, for the game, and like whatever you want to charge, you'll get 90% of it, and the store will claim like 10 or 5%, and you get the rest. I'm like, no, I don't charge for my games. That's something that I do is I'm there to enjoy the experience with other players. And as far as L's comment, maybe you should clean your house. My house is clean.
It's not so much his house is cleanliness you have to worry about. He has a lovely, very welcoming wife. He even has really good scotch if he likes you that much. The rub is he's got these 2 absolutely gorgeous huskies. They're always looking for a new chew toy. And yeah, they don't bite. They'll just no.
So yeah. The dogs think you're chew toy shaped.
Well, they don't actually chew on people. They will likely greet you very warmly and fanatically with licks and the wants for pets. They don't understand that some people don't want their attention, and they don't understand
kind of
that.
like Dino from the Flintstones.
Yeah.
Well, one will outrightly ignore you. And the other
That's
one
the
will love
reference I
you to
haven't
death.
heard from in a while. Thanks, Mar.
All right. So, what about you, MarHawkman? Do you have experience gaming in the shop? Have you, or at the family tables where you've mainly been at?
That's an interesting one. It's like I've done games in several different places, but like actually like proper shop games, the only ones I've done of that are actually tabletop minis campaigns.
Like what kind of game?
Give
us an example.
Pirates of the Cursed Seas.
Oh, maybe not.
That sounds fun as hell.
Did you have fun?
Oh yeah, but it's one of those things though. It's like they would have like scheduled events on weekends, but they would also have people just like, okay, we have like 8 people here. Let's do a 200-point build and have our fleets go at it.
That does sound fun. All right. What about you, Shadow?
Well, I've run games in the past, back at the heyday of the hobby, and I'm actually planning on opening a shop. So there's all kinds of stuff I'm going to be picking up, hopefully, from tonight's game. But, it really depends on the group, the game, and, I would say the chemistry. If you've got the right group, then they're going to want to go wherever your game is. You know what I mean? But these days there is a lot of, especially with older folks, they can't get out of the house, or they don't want to. They've been, they've done their 8 hours. Maybe it's Friday night, and they're up for a game, but they ain't going anywhere. So you've got to take all that into account and really be able to entice your players one way or the other to, hey, this is what we're doing, and be prepared to lose people that just aren't, up for leaving the house, if that's the case. Now, I'm looking at a lot of different strategies, let's just say, to get people into the shop one way or the other. I was talking to one of my potential partners today, and I'm not giving any ideas away because competition and all that crap. But you really got to work hard at it to get people to go into a shop. There's there's a lot of things that people don't consider. I can't tell you how many times working at the other shop I would find things that people lost, left behind, and never came back, or never saw them again, or things like that. The shops that charge you for a table, that's the way we ran it back in the day. You rented the table, so to speak, and the services of the GM, and the split was nowhere near the GM getting 90% of the takeaway. That's someone who's incredibly generous, or doesn't understand how much money they could make. It is their building after all. So there's if you can get into a situation where you're making 90% of the table haul, awesome. But chances are even that's going to be a rarity. The most fiscally sound method would be to just rent the table out at a flat fee and leave it at that. You want to rent the table? I don't care who's GM. It's 10, 20 bucks an hour, whatever. And hopefully you can rent lots of tables. Hopefully you have lots of tables. Because I see that if if we don't promote in-store gaming like this, we are going to see another decline in the hobby real soon. There's more incentive to stay home, and if you're going to stay home, there's more incentive to do other things, watch a movie, Netflix and chill, play a video game. So if you guys, go to stores regularly, do what you can do to get them to promote the actual in-store gaming, or there, could potentially be only online gaming because that's what the big companies want, and that's the most likely way to get your friends who don't want to leave the house to at least come to a virtual table.
All right. Well, I find between
Hate to
the
be
two.
all doom and gloom, but you guys have to see the trends.
I'm somewhere between the two. I have a game shop that I run out of. I have full tables. I'm lucky enough to have full tables, and the scheduling works. But I do miss home games. Scheduling for home games, scheduling for games is a bear. It doesn't matter if you're at a shop or at home. People have lives that they have to live, and none of us are still in high school or in college anymore, where our responsibility was only a thing, not everything else.
Right.
All right. So, next question. Location. Location is everything. That goes with parking and if room. And I know some people have bigger houses than others, and shops are smaller than others. That when it comes to the two, for the players that's going to be at your table, do you think it's easier just to go to a shop that has parking, like a parking lot, versus, hey, I live on A Street, pull into my driveway, and it's okay if you park, on the side. And these are sometimes neighborhoods or cul-de-sacs or whatever for home games. Or apartments have parking lots too, but I find apartments have very few visitor slots available from time to time. So, I mean, what are the pros and cons of this? What's the pros and cons of the being able to find somewhere to park to have people come over versus one over the other? MarHawkman, I'm going to start with you. When you said you haven't really played at many shops?
Well, see, one of the things with me is that several of the shops that I used to hang out at years ago when I lived in those towns or near those towns, because, reasons. It's one of the things with them though is that a lot of the time we would meet at this shop, like, hey, we're going to play, and the shop's closing in 20 minutes, so we're going to play over there or something like that, and not actually in the shop. I mean, it's like the two things, just like you're playing with people you met at the shop, but not in the shop.
I don't get it. Where do you play then if you're not playing in the shop?
Well, so some of the times we just that outside area, a restaurant that was down this, something like that. So
like Denny's.
Something like that.
Denny's, Perkins, any restaurant.
That can be a lot of fun. That can be a lot of fun just to see the look on the other patron's face, or the waitress. She has no clue what you're doing, and realizes you're going to be eating incredibly slowly, and thus taking up her table.
My rule of thumb is, if you're playing at Perkins or one of those restaurants, everybody's leaving at least $5 on the table as a tip.
Well, the one place that we went to is actually like an outdoor dining area where they just kind of is like, people are sitting there. That's nice.
Okay.
But it's just one of those things. It's like Actually, like playing home games, though, that's different and just not something that's like organized the same way. And to be honest, though, it's like even with those games, like usually playing games at with people I met at the store wasn't the first time I met that particular individual.
That is true. All right. Shadow? Oh yeah, I'll go with Shadow.
Repeat the question.
Basically boils down to, where do you think is more accessibility for the people that are coming over? A game shop or a house when it comes to parking and room, even in room instead a room inside the house versus the game shop? There's more accessible.
To be honest, I mean that's going to vary everywhere you go. You know, some people have big houses and big yards or big driveways to accommodate, you know, guests. Other places, they're going to be chock full of, you know, patrons from the other nearby stores. What I can offer is a couple of suggestions. One, carpool. Okay, one car. Everybody shows up in one car. You're all coming together. You're all leaving together. Whoever's driving, kick down some freaking gas money because it, you know, what is it? We're paying like $6 a gallon for gas. Yeah.
Oh, California's always been crazy when it comes to gas prices, though.
Yeah, well, it wasn't 2 years ago. And then, if you can, find a way to get your shop to have better hours. By better hours, I mean open early where there's less traffic, or stay open late where there's less traffic. And again, carpool. There's no point in, you know, everybody shelling out for gas and, you know, everything else. And, you know, you get to play Bohemian Rhapsody while you're, you know, on the way there.
Party on, Wayne. All right.
I don't even like that song, but yeah.
Well, apparently Scott has something to say to the whole $6.
I do ride a bike, Scott. I do ride a bike. My boy and I are the only people to ride bikes to his school 9 years straight, and now he's doing it in high school.
I'd ride a bike, but everywhere I want to go is like, just no.
Well, I mean, we live in Central Illinois. Everything is too far away for a bike.
Well, when I lived in Nashville, everything was like, everywhere I wanted to go automatically was about 45 minutes away drive. Peoria's not that problem, but the problem is it's still too damn far. Yeah, it's still too damn far for a bike. Anyways, Jade?
Yeah, so as far as accessibility goes, a game store is likely to be more accessible. Like, that's kind of what a store is meant to be. It's meant to be accessible to people. You know, and the multiple stores I have in the area, they're all accessible, and they're also ADA accessible, which, you know, means they're accessible to people.
Right.
I don't understand. What does ADA mean?
ADA is American Disability Act. So you have to have so many handicap spots. You have to be handicap accessible, so on and so forth. All those things. So that means they're accessible.
Right. It's like California to 50% of the population.
Sure. But, you know, a home isn't necessarily as easily accessible. And, you know, my wife and I are learning this the hard way. She's currently fighting a leg injury that she has to have surgery on. So she is not as mobile as she would be otherwise. So I'm trying to figure out how to help her around and you know, give her all the options of being able to move. And it got me thinking about, you know, my home. My home is not really accessible to people who are on crutches, you know, wheelchairs or whatever. That's something I can fix, sure. But my parking situation, you know, I've been able to park both my vehicles in my garage since day one, because that's just something my wife and I like to do. We like to be able to park in the garage. It's clear enough to do so, and I keep it that way. So I have my entire like 4-car driveway available for my friends to park in at pretty much any day. It's always available. Plus I've got street parking, so I can have like 6 or 7 vehicles parked on my or in front of my property or on my property at any given time. So I can accommodate, 6, 7 friends plus any who carpool. Now it comes to my basement. My basement, flight of stairs, not a really big room. It's a 14 by 20 room, give or take. So can't have that many people. Game shop, much bigger. Always, very much bigger than what I've got to work with here by at least double or triple, depending on the game store. So as far as accessibility goes, yeah, I would say game stores have it, over my home. And that's probably going to be the way it is with just about everybody, unless you have done things to your home to make it accessible to players and make sure that you have parking available and the ability for people to actually get in and get settled with little to no trouble. That's some of the things I actually look for occasionally is the ability that, if my friends get injured but still want a game, can they? Or will I have to pick up the game and go to them?
I love you like your brother, but if my knee ever goes sideways where I can't do stairs, you're the first house I'm Xing off places to go to game. Yeah. There's been multiple times a couple years ago where you could hear a Connell say, "Fuck these stairs, fuck these stairs, fuck these stairs," as I'm either going up them or down them. You'll hear, "Fuck these stairs."
They're not a great flight of stairs.
They are. They're great for exercise.
Oh yeah, that's the only thing they're good for. I hate them. I climb them almost every day.
Keep think of Popper's penguins, but that's a whole different subject.
Although that is an interesting point, though, is that it's like if not all of the players are able to climb stairs to get to the location they're playing, yeah, that could be an issue.
It's also that can also go to the game shop. Let's say the game shop is in some small little weird strip mall where it's up a flight of stairs. It's not on the bottom floor, but up a flight of stairs.
Actually, as a different example, one of the game shops that I used to go to regularly, it had a strange layout in that it was a long, thin room that they'd made into the game shop. So wheelchair accessible? No, just no. Because you have like the store counter on one side of the room and some other stuff on the other side of the room and a rather narrow pathway between the two that technically a wheelchair fits into. But, if there's a wheelchair there, nothing else is.
Yeah, I've been into a few shops that could fit that one. And yes, a library would be a great place to host games. Of course, they got the parking. They can rent out rooms, but libraries have their own hiccups. I found out. So do conference rooms over at your buddy's house if they live in a condo that has a conference room, like no eating or drinking. So everything has its own hiccups. Speaking of food atmosphere and atmosphere. Now, I kind of worded this question before I got these, but if you're running at a shop, hypothetically, you're running at a shop, the game only supports 5 people. 5 people. That's what the game supports. And you offer to run a game at your local game shop. How do you turn away people, but do it where they might come back? Because you got your 5. These are 5 people that showed up, not friends, not whatever. These are 5 people that showed up to play your game, and now 6, 7, 8 have showed up wanting a spot at the table, but the game only supports 5 people. How do you turn them away without, being an ass about it, and vice versa? How do you run a game, once again, that supports and actually needs 5 people at your home, but you can only get 3? Now, these are 2 different questions, but they're on the same scale of, gaming at one's house versus. So I'll start with the first one. How do you handle a full table, or after you get a full table and you got more players, but you don't want to chase them away, but you can't, they can't play. Sorry, no more room. How do you handle that? I'll start with you, Jade. You're muted.
That's an easy one for me, thank you. Because I actually had to do this during Free RPG Day. There were more players available than the game module would allow for that I had the ability to support. So I'm like, hey, this run is only going to take 2 hours. If you're here in 2 hours and you want to stick around, feel free to jump into the next one. You'll be the first ones at the table. I'm fine with that. Now that's if I'm running like module play or one-shot play. If I'm running campaign play, or like long running games, what is this limit you're talking about? Like, I don't know. No, I've run tables that are 16 players. Like I've had one table that actually was 16 players, but another game master stood up and be like, hey, you know what? I'm going to take this half the group and we're going to go over here and we're going to play, the other side of this game over there. And it was a piracy game. So it's, 16 players, 2 groups. But as far as like those kinds of situations where the table's like, oh yeah, well, I've got 5 people, the room itself only supports maybe 6 players, and I'm the 6th person in that table. And then, I'm going to say, hey, it's kind of cramped. I can try to accommodate you, but it's going to be uncomfortable. Like, are you sure you want to do this? And then, it'll also be up to the table. It's up to the players at the table. It's like, hey, anybody who doesn't want this person at the table, speak up now. But otherwise, I will try to work with that person on a schedule that, best fits them, as far as like, okay, get me 2, 3, or 4 other players and we'll definitely, sit down and have a table. And, I might start whole another table, or I'll find them a game master to run a game for them or with them. Or I might promote one of them to a game master and be like, hey, you've got a good handle on the game engine. You've got a story you're wanting to, put together, or a group you want to put together. Here's the players. Like they want to play. Do you want to run for them? Do you want, to take them on and run them through a game? So as far as L's question here, Jaide, what kind of store had a table of to fit 17 people? It was a rather weird store. So the store owner went from like place to place to place, and at one of those places he had a really, really huge room that wasn't, because he had his storage room and then he had this like play area, and nobody was using the play area at the time because he was still getting things set up. So that's where we played for a little while before moving it to a friend's basement. And that's the other aspect of it. You if you've run a game for a while and you've vetted the players and you like all the players, who's to say it has to stay at the shop? Sometimes you can move it to a house, especially if the hours aren't befitting your group very well. Like, hey, my work shift is changing from a morning shift to a afternoon shift. Can we shift the game a little bit later in the evening and run longer, after my shift ends? That's when you take the game from the shop to a home to be able to keep those players. Now, if you're not interested in keeping those players, keep the game at the shop. That's fine. And tell them, hey, here's the game. This is the shop hours. This is what I have to work with. But no, be courteous to those players. And if you're willing to put in additional effort, maybe make a second table.
About the size of the tables, if you go into any game shop that actually uses Magic the Gathering as their main profit, trust me, they can make room for an extra long table. Because I've seen game shops that do like Friday Night Magic that have a crazy amount of people playing, sitting at tables. Trust me, it can be done. It just takes a wiggle room.
That long thin one that I mentioned, that it's like they had the shopkeeper stuff on one side, they had those tables for the Friday Night Magic stuff on the other side, and then there was just like a walkway between the two, and that was like the entire store.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, I get that. All right. I'm gonna go with Shadow. Shadow, you're up next.
Can you repeat the question just so?
You're running a game that has a max number of say 6, and you get these people showed up first. They're not friends, but they actually showed up. They showed up on time, and show up at a game shop.
Okay.
They showed up at the game shop. You're running a table that carries about can hold 6 people, no more, and 7, 8, 9 people start showing up after the table is set. How do you handle this?
Bare knuckle fight in the parking lot.
Fair enough.
I mean, sorry guys. Show up earlier, or schedule a different day, or schedule a different DM or something. I mean, it's just like if you go to a restaurant and there's no tables, you're gonna have to wait or go somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, like the whole schedule a different DM thing though is like, is someone who is currently there able to do that? Maybe not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but maybe call ahead next time, save yourself a trip. But assuming they're going to drop everything to add you, if there's physically no room, what can you do? Somebody sit in somebody's lap. Yeah, that's not really I mean, that could be fun, but it's not likely.
Do you have any examples of that happening where you're running at the shop and you get more than what you're more than you can handle?
To be honest, like Jaide, I ran a 21-person table once, and the other GMs were kind of upset because they didn't want to go to their empty table. They wanted to go to the full table. So I just ran it and did my best. It's kind of like when you go to the barbershop, and there's the 2 brothers and they cut each other's hair. You know what I'm saying? You look for the guy whoever's got the good hair, haircut, you go to the other guy because he's the one who's cutting the other guy's hair. So they walk into a game room and there's 2 DMs, all sourpuss looking, and then there's just one table that's just lots of people. They're going to want into that table. Sorry, where are you going to fit? You want to wait like an hour and a half for your turn? All right. Otherwise, maybe, bring a group in and, start something new with your own table or something like that. It's just really highly unlikely that you're going to be able to make it work if the place is jam-packed. So again, call in ahead and maybe they can tell you over the phone, hey, this is a great night to come in, as opposed to right now because we're booked solid.
All right. Hawkman?
This is question 3, right?
Yeah. This is question 3.
He's jumping all over the place.
Yeah, I have ADD. Leave me alone.
Well, it's like, believe it or not, I have actually. Well, I mentioned that one of the places I used to go to, we would, not often play actually inside the store. We would play somewhere near the store. Well, I have actually played games in the Fashion Center Mall at Pentagon City. This is a 3-story mall, and it has a whole bunch of like coffee tables, so sort of things, just like scattered all over the place. And just like sit down at a random table, and no one's going to bother you. It's just that
that's
it's
a great idea,
it's the middle of a mall, so you're going to be hearing a whole lot of stuff.
Right, but no, I've got a mall like that too. That's actually a phenomenal idea.
But it's like part of the reason why we would do this, though, is that mall had a game store in it. It's just that it was a game store that didn't have allocated space for action. The ambience that gives you is day from playing it, though, because at home you have a people talking in the distance. You in the room with you, and
I get that. Granted, I've been piecemealing what you said. I don't know if it's just me, but I'm getting like every other third word.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. You're fading in and out, Bar.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I just had the lights flicker here. I don't know why. Well, like I said,
Supernatural, you can figure it out.
My internet's been acting really crazy. But well, like what I was saying though, is that, one of the game shops I used to go to regularly didn't have room inside the store for anyone to actually play anything. So anytime someone wanted to play, they would play at one of the dining tables outside in the one of the main walkways inside the mall. It's just, it's like a 3-story mall, and it's actually kind of hard to hear what people are saying when you're sitting at the table, though, just because of just how much background noise there is.
Yeah, that's actually going to lead into another question about the distractions. All right, I think I've asked everybody this question.
Well, you know what? Speaking of distractions, there I actually have some that's a great one for that one, but we'll wait till this distraction
time. Now the second part of it, you have a home game, and you have 3. You need more. It's not that you have too many. You have two. You have too many. You have too less. Too few. You called everybody that you had at least twice. After you called them, you called their wives, because we all really know who makes the decisions in that most households. And you just can't get the numbers. Now, where do you find the numbers? Do you go to your local game shop and put up posters saying ventures needed? Do you go to your library, your post office, your mall, your barber shop, wherever? Where do you go to find players if you're hosting a home game? I'll start with you, Shadow.
To be honest, I don't even begin to start running a game until I've got the numbers. Like I'm getting ready to start a game, and I'm going to do. Hey, Jack, I'm going to do a video inviting some people to more or less audition or try to get the ball rolling before I actually start inviting people over. I'll keep it in the wings until you just be quiet, until there are actually the kind of numbers that I'm looking for to actually run a game. There's no point in running a 3-person game, in my opinion. You got to have at least 4. You get the 4 food groups, then you have each player roll up 2 characters, and then you've got a game. I know other people have larger magic numbers, but 4 is the minimum. 4 plus a GM, you get the whole 3 musketeers, 4 musketeers, Fantastic Four dynamic going, and then you're ready to go. Before that, you just have plans for a game. And if you're running short on players, you tell your players, hey, do you know anybody who'd like to join in this game? Maybe they do know somebody. Maybe they've got a friend or a family member who's been curious about the hobby that their husband, boyfriend, best friend, neighbor, whatever, has been talking about, and maybe invite them, or at least start the vetting process to see if they're a good fit, because I'd rather have no players than that one disruptive player that's going to ruin the game for everybody else.
All right.
But yeah, I won't even start until I have the numbers. Now, where to find them, you'd be surprised. I mean, it's been a long time since I ran an in-person game, and even then it was with my regular group, so I didn't have to look. If I was looking for people to join in an in-person game right now, I wouldn't even know where to go. It's not like we don't even have a game shop within 100 miles of where I live to even meet at the game shop.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
All right. Jaide?
Yeah, so I'm actually unmuted this time. As far as not having enough players at my table, like I'm facing that right now. And the reason I'm facing that right now is everyone who was originally part of my gaming group went their separate ways. They got different jobs, they changed career paths, or their schedules at work changed so drastically that it's just not feasible to meet up with everyone at the table anymore. So I'm facing that right now. So I don't have a game. I haven't had a game in my basement for 2 years. I'm looking to fix that, but I need to find people available. And I would like to do it in person rather than online. But you're pointing to yourself, but that makes one.
I know.
One.
Hey, we can kidnap Kai. That's two.
Maybe. If he's ever available. But, so not having enough players, I can relate to this right now. Like this is the first time in 20 years I've been able to relate to this issue. I've always had players. I used to have a Rolodex for my players to know who was coming up next because I had that many people wanting into my table. So I was okay, well, once you don't become available for X number of days or X number of sessions, I put your name to the bottom of the list and I pull the next person in. It's kind of like a merry-go-round or a Ferris wheel of players. Like whoever's at the top of the Ferris wheel, that's who's playing. Everybody else has to enter at the ground floor and wait their turn. So where do I go to find players? I don't know. You tell me, because I've looked and
it's slim pickings right now.
Yeah, I am not going to just invite randos to my house because this is where I live and I don't know them. I don't want to be inviting the next serial killer, in our area to my home. Not saying that that's going to happen, but it's a possibility. Like, you never know until you vet them. So I've got to run enough store games until I feel comfortable with the people I, am running for it at the store game to be like, hey, I'm putting together a group. What days are you available? Would you like to play? So, I mean, like, that's what I'm going through right now. And it's baffling to me because, like I said, it's the first time in 20 years this has happened to me. So I don't know where to go.
Well, I understand that situation. Actually,
yeah, I'm sorry. I don't have a great.
It's sometimes there are just no great answers.
When I find when I find the answer to this, I'll let you know. But so far, everything I've tried has literally
my Tuesdays will forever be open for Jaide's table. I'm just saying that now.
I appreciate that.
I can't promise
like I said,
the rest
you're just
of the week.
one.
Hey, Kai said he has Tuesdays off now, so that might be two.
Also depends on the day. Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Anyways, getting back to what we're trying to talk about. Yeah. Some questions just don't have great answers. It is what it is. All right. The other thing about atmosphere is food. If you're sitting at a table, I get that, Scott. If you're sitting at a table for long enough, you start getting hungry and thirsty. a soda, bag of chips.
Well, remember what I was saying earlier about how there being a certain specific distraction we would always have in Pentagon City Mall?
Yeah.
The smell of food permeating the entire building.
Yeah.
I mean, people would always end up getting something from somewhere.
I that's fair. Now, I've gamed when it comes to food. How was your recommendation on how food should be handled via? I'll start with home. Do you guys like everybody just bring their own? Maybe a potluck, no food. How do you guys handle the food and drink thing at your guys's if you have home games? I'll start with Shadow. How would you handle it?
Bring something or don't knock on the door. Don't show my house empty-handed. We're all adults here, and I don't know what you like, but bring everything you think you're going to need, and then when I break out the French bread pizza or whatever I've made, be gracious, don't be a pig, because you won't come back. Wipe your feet before you come in. The whole bit. This isn't. Yeah, thank you, Scott. I have a particular friend who I haven't seen in a good long time, but last time I saw him, he was a pig, and I wouldn't invite him to my place again. Just no. That's not. I don't care if we're playing in the garage, in the backyard, or at the dinner table. The place better look just like it was when you got there. Clean, because I'm going to clean up before you guys get here. I sure shit don't want to have to clean up after you left. Maybe a little, obviously there's some things, and, also I noticed you didn't bring up any questions about intoxicants when you're talking about in-home gaming. I don't know about you guys, but that was like a huge thing back in the day. And I don't just mean liquid beverages. I mean, a lot of other things happen in my circles. And I don't just mean the obvious usual what you're thinking. There was a lot of stuff, a lot of very, very late night games, if you know what I'm saying. And you may want to put a rule in there about such things, even a simple thing as smoking. You want to smoke, you got to go outside. Or no smoking allowed. That's going to, deter a lot of people from wanting to show up, and if you're playing a game at a store and you got a player like me who's going to be out having a cigarette every hour or so, that might be, you might not be okay with that. I have been in many a game where you could barely see each other because of the smoke. It was literally an episode of that 70s show or backstage, filming the Monkees TV show. There were some pretty cloudy rooms. You might want to, literally, make a house rule sheet for prospective, gamers. Let them know that, no drinking, no smoking, certain things, that not the safety rules things. I'm talking about social things. Maybe you don't like gum at the table. I mean, there's a couple of people in our community that would probably, blow a gasket if you showed up, chewing gum at the table. There are a lot of little pet peeves when it comes to not just the food and beverages. Right. Lady, that would be outside, across the street. No, I'm kidding.
That depends on what state you live in. That depends on what state you live in.
Obviously, I've got a 15-year-old boy who I'm trying to keep on the straight and narrow. So, despite what I may have done, it's not do as I do, it's do as I say when it comes to my particular household.
Well, I mean, for that particular one, it's like, this is my life experience. This is what I know will happen if you do this. This is why I feel you shouldn't do this. Which also applies to, experiences with gaming. Because,
I've never done anything. It's just my rules. Like I'm going to tell them what I did. I mean,
that never worked out.
Right, because if you go into details, your kids are going to try and emulate you, thinking, "Well, Dad did it. Why can't I?" Because if you do, you'll be dead.
What I was getting at though is that it kind of also applies to the whole doing game stuff though, is because like if someone has done, like, say, eating pizza while playing a game and just didn't like how that turned out, then they have a reason to say no on a later occasion, and or getting drunk while playing a game. I suppose that's another good example.
Right, and to be honest, I was listening to Omen talk about it. He kind of likes to do like a major meal before the game, so that okay, you're done. You should be freaking full. Don't be breaking out the Doritos while we're playing, kind of mentality. Which if you really want to get into the game, especially if you're one of the more immersive role players, then yeah, let's go have a meal. We can talk about the game before the game. Now we're going to play the game, and then maybe after the game, we go out for drinks or another meal or whatever, depending on how long a game you're going to play. So you really got to get all the aspects of the social contract that you're going to enact before, during, and after a game to really get the best experience. So it's not like in the old days where you could just show up half drunk, you forgot your character sheet, but you brought a 6-pack and a bag of Doritos. Let's play. That may not wash anymore. That may not go over.
If that washed back when we were in our 20s.
Some places that's going to be just fine. Other places it's not. So, a good thing to really go over in a session 0, if you're looking at, like say you're going to post a sign at a game shop looking for players, either way, you may want to go and set a specific date. I'm going to do a session 0 on this date at this table or at this place. If you're interested, meet us here, and then you can discuss all the crap we just talked about to get people to your table. Because you may have 12 people show up and only 4 want to play after everything is said and done, but at least you've weeded out the people that are most likely going to work, or at least gel with half of what you're offering.
Right. Jade?
So hold on, what was the question again? Sorry.
How do you handle food and drink at your table? Do you prefer everybody just bring their own stuff? Do you like potlucks?
So that depends. And I say that depends. So I expect everybody to bring their own drinks and their own snacks. And the reason for that is I don't know their taste. They know their taste. They know what they like. They know what they're going to go for. Bring your own stuff. You don't have to share. I don't care, because I have my own taste and I know that my tastes are different. I might want to have a Guinness at the table. I might want to have a Oktoberfest or something at the table. So I don't mind like one beer during the entire night. That's fine with me. If I see you're drinking multiple beers, I'm going to stop the game. I'm going to take the keys away and I'm going to send you to go sleep in the guest bedroom. Because I don't tolerate drunkenness. Like I will tolerate 1 beer, maybe 2 in a night. I can get behind. That's fine. But as far as like bringing stuff to the table, yeah, sure, absolutely. You can even eat at the table. I don't mind. Because I'm going to be cognizant of what you're doing when it's not your turn. So when it is your turn, and I'm going to nod at you and be like, "Hey, are you ready?" If you're not ready, then I'm going to skip you. You don't get to act that turn. So you've got to also be aware of, oh, hey, I can't be stuffing my face right now because it's, not my turn. I can, gradually munch on things, sure, but my turn is coming up, so I need to stop, clear my throat, and be able to play. So I don't mind people eating at the table. I don't mind people drinking at the table. Water, absolutely. You go up to the tap, get as much water as you want, come back down, be ready to play. But there are some occasions that we have had potlucks where people bring things. And those are typically the very last session of a campaign. We call it the Hero's Feast. Yes, we do play on that pun pretty hard. And what it is we prepare kind of like a Friendsgiving or a Thanksgiving, and we rehash some of the things that brought us to the table, that, some of the great memories we had at the table as we play the last session. And there's food in the basement, in crock pots, on cookie sheets, or whatever the case might be. And we call it the Hero's Feast. Bring whatever you want, and let's have a great time and have a great dinner and have a great night with one another as we end a game. There are those potlucks we do that are close to the holidays too. So we have done a Friendsgiving game night where we did, I think it was a Friday night, and we did like Thanksgiving, but with the game table. We've done it with other events like 4th of July as well, where we had a cookout and we gamed the same day. So absolutely, snacks to me are a must. I have a high metabolism. I may not look like I have a high metabolism, but I do. And every 4 hours, like clockwork, if I don't eat something, my stomach revolts and tries to eat me instead. So yeah. makes gaming for longer than 4 hours pretty hard for me if I don't have something to munch on.
Fair enough. MarHawkman?
Well, home games, we always do the whole meal prep prior to playing, and then hopefully get that done with quick enough to actually have time to play, because sometimes our meal prep takes a little bit too long, and that doesn't necessarily work well.
Okay.
But also that part of that though is because a lot of the time when people are like, oh, it's not time to play the game yet, they also don't even get out anything or set things up so that we're ready to play the game. So, that's a thing. Because again, it's siblings having fun, hanging out with each other, and more having fun than actually trying to play the game.
Hey, the idea of playing the game is to hang out with people you enjoy. Even sometimes that means family.
I mean, this particular venue is one of those things where playing something like, say, Star Trek Adventures is one of several ways to have fun.
All right.
Which is actually one thing that comes up is that people will have one reason or another where they decide they'd rather not play that today.
Okay. Me personally, if I'm doing a home game, if I'm doing a home game out of my house, not if I'm gaming over at Jaide's, not if I'm gaming over somebody else's, but my own house, I've always been, and I was kind of raised this way. If you're having friends over longer than 2 hours, you should feed them. They're coming over, do chili, do something that's not exactly cheap, but it's easy. It doesn't take much of your time, and you can make a lot of it. I'm not saying that you should go out and get hamburgers or make steaks. If you want to, more power to you. But sometimes a bowl chili or a large beef, pork roast, whatever, and everybody eats before game. It just settles. Or sometimes people just need to take sometimes people need to take a break for smoky treats or whatever, and that's not bad times. Like, well, if those three are going out for a quick smoke, I'm gonna get a quick bowl of using an example, chili or pizza or whatever is available. So I personally think that if you're having a home game, you don't have to feed your players, but at the same time, don't be an ass. Don't tell them not to bring food for themselves, because an average game should last about 8 hours if it's worth playing. That's my opinion. Everybody else might vary. I want an 8-hour game. I don't want a 4-hour game. I don't want a 2-hour game. I want 8-hour game, but I'll sell for a 4-hour game if that guy over there is DMing. So that's where I am on food. And what Shadow said with the beer and other stuff, I don't allow other stuff in my house. I don't really care about edibles, but here's the rub. Unless somebody's coming to pick your ass up because you had an edible, well, I can handle. I don't care. They'll pop you with a DUI either way. I don't care. If you show up with carpool with one of your buddies, is like, I'm having an edible. Okay, who's driving? Oh, Tony's driving. Whatever. You do you, cupcake. But if you drive yourself, the answer is a hard no. The whole two beer thing that Jade said, I think I've had 3 at max. I know my limits with Jade. I think I could push 3, but Jade's known me longer than most. No, you're muted.
Yeah, and I still took your keys away.
You did not.
Yeah, I did. You weren't looking.
I remember driving myself. No. When I had three beers, you were the one driving me back.
Yep, you're damn right.
Yeah,
I was.
Yeah. So either way, I wasn't driving. Anyways, but when it comes to food and stuff like that, everybody's miles are different of what they will and will not allow. I recommend if you have kids, just keep the beer going on a different night or stuff like that. But you do you cupcakes.
Hey, real quick, thanks, Crafting. I do what I can.
There's good food in Gatekeeping Discord. That's good to know.
The whole thing about like drinking alcohol is that I can't think of any place I've ever done gaming where people did more than a little bit. It's just like nowhere have I ever done that where they actually had people doing like get drunk kind of drinking at all.
Mar, I could tell you some stories that, well,
I'm still looking for a place that I can roll some dice, or as other people in other channels call it, be a human dice roller, and smoke a cigar at the same time. That's how I prefer to game. If it's a nice summer night and we could go outside, that's amazing. I've been known to chew on cigars at in-game and not like them. But everybody's got their own things. Anyways, so that goes to that. We kind of already talked about player base and that's how I want to. Now, there are multiple types of players out there, meaning murder hobos to more people. There's murder hobos to people who prefer more RPG to the happy medium. With game shops, you kind of get the mixture of the 3 to 5 to 6, however, actually, really they are now that I think about more than those 3. How do you cater that if you're running into a game shop over running at your house? Because I imagine at your house, you kind of can cater what you want to deal with at your house, where at a shop, it's more of a free range of what personality you're going to get.
Can you sort of clarify what you mean by cater? Because I don't know that I will ever do that as it's coming across.
Certain people have certain playing types. Some people like just to go burn down the village. There's players out there that want to go spend time with the mayor and have a pot of tea for 3 fucking hours. Or you have people who want to, okay, let's go talk to the mayor, find out what's going on, take care of the problem, and keep the story going on. I'm just using those as the basic 3. And now at a game shop, you don't know what of those 3 is going to be sitting down at your table. But at your home, you kind of can cater that out, where I don't want to deal with a bunch of murder hobos. I don't want to have a tea party for 5 freaking hours, or I want to keep, have someone somewhere in the middle.
Dude, vetting, man. Just vet them before you invite them. If you're at a store and you know, if I'm at a store, I'm probably already planning on meeting, my group. Whether I'm GMing or not, I would expect that I'm going to meet my group. If I'm just looking for a pickup game, then, I'll be cool. If I'm looking to pick up players, then I'll just, use it as a learning experience, start something, like for example, like I walk into a store, grab a table and I want to DM something, looking for some new players. I'm going to give whoever comes to the table, I hope a exciting game, because you reminded me something when you talked about the tea party. Well, there's not going to be any tea parties because I'm going to keep it exciting. I'm probably going to blow up the tea house, just to get the ball rolling. Okay, now figure out who blew up the tea house while you're getting bandaged up, as opposed to sitting around the campfire, shooting the breeze kind of gaming. It's like, oh, okay, you guys sit down to camp, and if that sort of thing starts rolling on for more than 45 minutes, it's going to start raining arrows from the advancing goblins that you weren't paying attention to, or something like that. I'm just going to keep it rolling. So there's not going to be a whole lot of the, role play, for hours and hours and hours kind of thing, because I don't know too many people that really want to do that.
Okay.
Count that as, my answer for the whole thing.
Okay. Fair enough. Jaide? The question is, how do you handle a table versus a home table versus a store table? What I mean by that is I'm using three types of players: for the murder hobo, the one in the middle, and the RPG elite.
Sure.
How do you funnel that into a home game where it moves smoothly, and how do you deal with it at a local store table?
So home table, I can pretty well weed out pretty quickly the kind of players I want, because vetting. But yep, I know. I figure people don't want to hear me breathing, but with my allergy problem right now. So as far as how do I deal with them at my table? So again, I weed them out. I don't really look for murder hobos at my table. I've had them, sure. I've been one. I don't enjoy it anymore for various reasons. It feels, I don't know, it feels cheap to me, or that there's no challenge anymore. So as far as, when I get murder hobos at my table, okay, I'm going to throw challenges at them that they're not prepared for. I'm going to be challenging the role players to do things that they're not necessarily prepared for. The people who sit in the middle, they're likely prepared for either option, but they're not necessarily going to know what option they need to go with best. I like to keep my players on their toes, not my toes, their toes. And that is because, if they know what's coming next, there's no mystery, there's no fun to it, there's no challenge. The mystery aspect of it, of not knowing what's around the next bend, is part of the fun. So if the murder hobo, the min-maxing murder hobo, who's designed and engineered, and I mean literally engineered their character to the point of, oh, I can hide from gods, or I can hit God from the moon. Okay, that's great. You can do that thing. That's awesome. Are you going to handle, the princess falling all over herself for you because you have a -5 charisma? What are you going to do? And that person, at that point, the person's like, well, I'm going to roleplay like this. And I'm like, oh, okay. Your charisma's -5. How please, expound upon me why this princess is hanging on you like this. Why are you trying to get with them? Or are they actually using you? And then, I like like toying with some of my players in that way, because it gets them thinking, oh, maybe I shouldn't have made that my dump stat. Or, oh yeah, I'm a big dumb barbarian. I've got a -5 charisma or a -5 intelligence. I don't need intelligence. I'm just going to charge into every room and bash everything until it dies. All right, you charged into the room, and now you're bashing on something that doesn't actually take physical damage. It's immune to physical damage. What are you going to do?
Oh, I was going to use the example of you ran into the room and then realized that the floor is actually a pit trap.
Yeah, I've done that too, where they ran into the room and the pressure plate was in the center of the room. They ran in there, and the room, the floor falls away at the starting at the edges of the room, going towards the center. And they're like, "Oh, I'm gonna leap to the door," and I'm like, "Do you have a 20-foot leap distance?" Sure I do. Yeah, go ahead and roll that for me. Thank you. And, while you're rolling that, you're going to be taking damage when you fall onto the spikes below.
Let me see that 50.
Right. Yeah. Let me see that 50. And, I have had players who've min-maxed, their skills instead of, their attack power. And that's cool. Like, if that's the way you feel like you need to play, more power to you. I'm not going to stop you from doing it. I will put challenges in your path that are going to challenge you in other ways than just that one thing you were super good at. Just because like life doesn't always put the things you were best at in front of you. Sometimes life throws you a curveball and you have to figure out how to pivot. The same thing, in my games. Like, if you're really good at picking locks, at some point you're gonna get to a door. You're not gonna see a lock on the door. And you're like, well, I don't think it's locked. I don't think it's trapped.
I'm trying to
open it first.
Remember where I saw it, but I remember. I think it was a novel I read 20 years ago, but. One of the things in this novel was the idea of magically warded locks, where the point of the magic ward is to make the lock itself appear to be not there.
Yeah.
Which I guess would fit in the category of illusion magic, because, I mean, in a lot of cases,
it doesn't have to be illusion magic.
Even if you like walked up to the door and like touched it, you wouldn't feel the lock. You would feel whatever the magic.
It locks from the inside and has no exterior unlocking mechanism. It's panic room.
Well, with this specific one from the book, it's like you like do some sort of like a magic thing, and it would reveal the doorknob to you.
Sure, but either way, even if I'm dealing with a store game, and I've got I even had this on Free RPG Day. I had this kid. He couldn't have been more than 13. Sit down at my table. And he was absolutely the min-maxing McMurder hobo. He wanted to take all of the cool things and all the cool abilities for his character. Now, he was using a pre-made character because it was just easier for that day to have pre-made characters rather than spend the 10, 15 minutes going through character creation with each individual person. So he took the character that, most people would have said, well, that was probably the most broken character. Yeah, that's fine. I don't really care. Whatever. He's like, if I combine this ability with this ability and this weapon, does it do these things? I'm like, yep, sure does, but you'll never get to use it, and I won't tell you that because you're going to be riding around in a mech. I was running The Fall of Arnor, Planet Killer Part 1. So the player was never going to be outside of their hard suit. The player was going to always be in their Gundam, basically. And sure, some of the abilities activated, whatnot, but I could tell that the player was a min-maxing murder hope because that's what they did at the 5e table that was next to me 2 hours previous. You know what? I let them run with it. But the object of the story or object of the session was not to be a murder hobo. The object of the session was to get the MacGuffin, figure out how to get the MacGuffin off planet before the planet died or before the planet exploded. That was the goal. That was the entire mission. So when the min-maxing murder hobo character, the kid, was like, yeah, I'm going to turn this thing that can lift 50 tons off the planet into the atmosphere. I want to turn this thing into a weapon. Sure, you can do that. I will allow that. You can use it once. And yeah, sure enough, he used it. I had random loot tables, and they went through a scrapyard and found another one. And that player is like, no, I'm not giving you this to turn into a weapon. I'm strapping this to the mobile suit that has the data on it, and I'm going to fire that thing off and get them off planet, and I will figure out how to get myself off planet if I have time. And they won the scenario because that the other player was like, no, what you're doing is not the goal. What you're doing is selfish. And you're just doing it to slag things. This is the mission. I'm solving the mission. So I didn't have to step in on that. The other players at the table like, oh, we're going about this entirely wrong. So present methods to those players who are the murder hobos, or present the role players with a challenge that they can't just role play themselves out of. Make it challenging, because you're going to have a better time with it. They are going to have a good time, even if they don't necessarily see it immediately.
All right. That was a really good answer. Now I have to remember what the question was from MarHawkman.
How about murder hobos and role players and those in between?
How do you have family games? Do you ever play with people outside your family, MarHawkman, or is it?
I mean, recently I've been doing mostly one of two things: Discord games and family games. But the family games are the ones that are like in person, where I go over to my siblings' house and we hang out for a few hours. Discord games, those I don't necessarily know the people I'm playing with at all. There are certain people that I played with in Discord games where I didn't meet the person until before the game started, and we only played with that person once. So I don't even actually remember the person's name because I interacted with them for such a short period of time.
Okay. Okay. So let me put it this way. With your family game, I don't. You're amongst one of several or a few siblings and their wives or husbands, as the case may be. How do you handle different personalities that might appear at the table? I mean, I get that your brothers or your sisters, but gaming does bring out different personalities in different people.
Well, I mean, also this particular group, we have like 8 people, so there's definitely a variety of personalities. Like for one of them is my nephew, who we're explaining to him why being a murder hobo isn't necessarily a good thing. However, this comes up often. And, it's kind of sort of like what you were saying, though, is that the person who is doing the murder hobo thing suddenly realizes that they're not actually going to get rewarded for it. Because, being a murder hobo isn't the goal. So going around killing a whole bunch of stuff is wasting time.
All right.
Like one of the Star Trek Adventures games we played, is that he decided to wander off in the woods, just looking for stuff because he was bored of assisting with investigating a partially abandoned science facility because waiting for people to examine things was boring. So we do the random encounter table roll when he decides to walk back to the shuttlecraft alone in the dark at night. Okay, you have encountered a 200-pound cat. The cat will eat you now. Well, what actually ended up happening, though, is that one of the people who was actually at the shuttlecraft does an emergency beam out using, basically the last of the shuttlecraft's power to do it. So now we can't really use the shuttlecraft for much of anything beyond communications at that point to save him from getting eaten.
These are one of those rare moments where I don't want to, move on, and the off chance that he comes back mid statement. But I am. All right. You're muted as well.
Yep. Looks like internet is not his friend tonight.
No, it does not. All right. The questions I have written down to me are fairly sterile, and I'm trying to add more of a human-ish feel to the questions. That's why they're not exactly what as written. So I am sorry about that. Moving to number 5, distractions and focusing. Where between the two, where do you think it's easier to keep your players focused? At a house where God only knows what's going on, outside of your house, let's say you're gaming over at a friend's house who has 3 screaming kids, 2 barking dogs, and a whiny teenager. Versus at a game shop where you have, it's a game shop. You got people yelling at each other, that's gay, while they're playing Magic the Gathering, or whatever. Where do you find it easier to where do you find it's easier to control the party that you are running? At a game shop or at your own home? Or at a person's home? I will start with you, Jaide, because I don't know where Shadow is, and Mark is, having internet issues.
So, as far as distractions go, now I know a lot of players or a lot of game masters are having this problem. I even have this problem where my players are more invested in this than they are the table. This annoys me. This annoys me greatly. And I ask my players, hey, what are you doing with the device? Sometimes they have a laptop in front of them. If they're actively playing a different game entirely, you know who you are. I know what you're doing. I ask you to stop because it's incredibly rude. Yes, I get it. You're bored. If you're that bored with the game, maybe this game's not for you. Or maybe I'm doing a crap job of moving the camera from player to player. I do try to be fair. I try to give everyone, the same amount of time between turns to do things. And Index Card RPG has really gotten me into the habit of keeping things in player order or in turn order. Everything happens in the turn order around the table, in a clockwise fashion. There are some times where I might switch it up and go Widdershin and go, starting on my right and going left around the table. And that's mostly to throw people off and get them to put their phones down and guess, like, where's he going to start next? But be cognizant, and I've said it multiple times on this show and on Table Breakers. Be cognizant of what's going on at the table. Pay attention to not just your turn, but other players' turns. Now, I am in a Saturday game. It's an every other Saturday game. And when it's not my turn, I am looking up other things that are game related. I'm looking up powers and abilities, and I'm contemplating the choices in words that I'm going to have when it becomes my turn again. Because there are sometimes I don't have the best words, so I will go look up better words to use, words that actually have better meanings than the words that I already know. Because I want to be the best that I can be in my speech, my ability to orate, and my ability to role play. And I know I'm saying a lot of ums and making a lot of extra noises, but when I'm sitting down at the table, I'm thinking constantly. Like, my brain does not stop moving at the table. I'm constantly thinking of what happens next. If I go down this path, what is the next logical solution to it? And that's what I hope for most of my players, but I know that's not what I'm going to get. So with distractions, I would say it's actually easier to maintain distractions at a game shop than it is at a home table, because at a home table, people are more comfortable. At a game shop, people are less comfortable because there are other things going around, behind them. They may not be paying attention to their phone, but there are the distractions. But I can snap them back in the moment by calling out their name. That gets people's attention immediately. My home table, I use character names. I don't use the real player's name. I use the character names at my home table. And sometimes people forget that they're in character, that they're playing a character, that they're at a game. And I have to bring them back with their real names. And I don't like doing that. I don't like how distracted some of them are, but I don't know what the solution there is, other than, hey, leave your device, in my storage lockers out in the hall, because I have a storage system in my basement right outside the door for people to put shoes or coats, umbrellas, whatever the case might be. They can pick one of the cubes and put their stuff there.
That's new.
But yeah, it's new since you were last year. Yeah. But yeah, that's, set the phones down, set the tablets down, the switches, and play the game. Now, if I'm running a VTT and players are logged into the VTT, on their laptop, awesome. I expect them to be looking up their spells between turns, not what's the weather the next day? How's my favorite sports ball team doing? Oh, hey, did you hear about this person with that person? No, that's not why you're at my table. Put that stuff aside.
All right. Shadow, do you need a cup of coffee? I heard Blackout Coffee does a really good Reaper's blend. You'll have to talk to Bruce about that, because he can get you a discount.
I don't drink coffee.
Well, water. Do we need to hook you up with a better supply of water?
I'm good.
There we go.
All right. See, Bruce, I did a small little commercial for you. Anyways, how do you handle distractions at your? In your opinion, where is it easier to handle distractions, at your home table or at a game shop?
Oh, easily at a shop. People are there to game. It's no contest versus, unless there's something going on at the other table and people are hooting and hollering, then yeah. But at a private home game, I used to have this guy. We'd have a game every Friday, and I kid you not, he would hit the comic book store before he'd show up at my place with a stack of comic books, thinking he was going to get through most of them at the game table. Yeah, not okay. I had to put a stop to that, or I would just start wailing on him with damage out of nowhere to snap him out of it. It's like, what? Oh yeah, you just got hit with 78 points of damage. What? Oh, you weren't paying attention. Oh, you didn't know about the beholder that was hovering right above you. Something like that. And it'd be like, you serious? I'm like, I'm serious. You weren't paying attention. You take some damage. I know for the most part they probably didn't even write the damage down, but it's really easy. And that was way before cell phones and laptops, but maybe not laptops, but you get my meaning. Leave your stuff in your car. Don't bring it with you to begin with. We're here to game. And if it becomes a problem, I'll just forget to invite you, because I would always invite people on the phone, because we, believe it or not, back then we actually communicated with each other with the old-fashioned phone all the time. I would have people calling me all the time in between games, trying to, finagle this or, manipulate that situation or just asking me questions about what was going on, what was going to happen next. And, that would give me the opportunity to say, okay, well, we're playing tonight or playing tomorrow or whatever. And if you were one of those people, I'd be like, oh, I forgot to invite you. You didn't really miss anything because you'd just be, reading your comic books or doing something else. Don't worry, they went on without you, or I just wouldn't call them back to continue in the game. It's just you're here to game. You really have to kind of put your foot down, or people will walk all over you. And then once one person starts doing it, then other people start doing it. And to quote the Dread Pirate Wesley, that it's nothing but work, work, work. You don't want to do that. You gotta nip that in the bud as quick as possible, or you'll find your game falling apart.
All right, MarHawkman, same question. Between your family game or the other games you might be in, where do you find it easier to concentrate on the game or see that other people are able to keep the game going? All right.
Mark, your devices might be muted or having problems.
Well, we're going to stick a pin into that and keep the ball going. As somebody once said, the show must continue or go on, or whatever they said. The hell with them. Anyways, and he popped.
He's probably relogging.
All right. Now, let's get into the money aspect of this. All right, really quick. I want to answer the last question. Between the two, I find shop games. He popped back. Okay. I find shop games to be easier to keep the distraction out of than home games. No. Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
I don't know what it is. It's like it's like the website lost my microphone or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
anyway,
that happens.
What I was saying though is that home games are basically it's just like it's like friends and family there to hang out, and actually playing the game tends to be secondary to hanging out. So I mean, it's like there's you mentioned the whole example of like playing on my phone. My sister Martha does that, but there's a variety of other distractions. Like my nephew, for example, will often do something like wandering off into a different room and watching an episode of Star Trek Lower Decks on a computer for reasons that I was like, why are you doing that in the middle of the game? We're playing the game right now. Like, but yeah, it's like the whole like distractions thing. There's like a wide variety of possible distractions, and playing on phones is merely one of many.
All right. As I was saying, I'm lucky enough because my table I can close the door. When I'm running my table, it's in a side room. It's big enough to host the people I have, and when we start the game, I can just close the door, and I have no outside, distractions coming in. People, this or that. Phones are a thing, but I think phones are always an issue with everybody. I'm partly to blame because if it's not my turn, I gotta do something to keep myself sitting in one place. I have bad case of ADD. That is also the reason why I like figs, because I can always just target myself back in fairly quickly at where I need to be. Especially if I'm playing Mad Sweeney and what was the other Higgins. You know, because those are legitimately two different voices in my head for those characters. I'll explain later. That's my characters all have their own voices in my head, and that's how I make my characters. Like I find their voice first. But between the distractions and everything else, I find my shop, the two shops I've worked at, I should say, I've been lucky enough where I can just like close the door and all the chaos is legitly on the other side of the wall, and I can keep my players basically on task. So I think I might have lucked out on that one. Now, gaming is not cheap. Gaming by any stretch of the imagination is not cheap. It can be made cheaper, but there are some common things you need. You need, if it's a dice game, you need dice. Do you print out your own character sheet, or do you get one from the game shop for 10 cents? How is it done at a person's house? How are these materials handled, I should say? The books, if you're playing a RPG that has their own little library that you need, or at somebody's house where the DM only has 2 out of the 130 books. How's the material how do you handle the material that is needed to play the game at your house versus the shop? Most times shops will have everything you need. There might be a little bit of a surcharge, like pencils, character sheets, and stuff like that, drinks, food, such and such. And at your home, are you printing it out for your players? Are you letting your players put their greasy Dorito hands all over your first edition of edition of RPG book that you have? How do you do this? Or do you allow your players to be updated and use sites like Hero Lab and things like that, where it's all digital and not on a computer? How do you handle the material aspect of the gaming? I'll start with you, Shadow. Do you get where I'm going with this question?
Yeah. Well, back in the old days, if you're gaming at the shop, you as the GM brought a duffel bag or two full of everything you needed, along with the weightlifting belt, because those bags and books got heavy. Miniatures, same thing. As a player, all you need is your player's handbook, your character folder, and hopefully a miniature representing your character, and of course your own dice. It was just, that's the way it was. There was nothing in the game hall. It was literally designed that way. There were posters on the wall. There were video games. There might have been some trash cans, tables, chairs, and that was it. Because anything else, and you can guarantee half of it's going to walk out of the door without your permission by the end of the first year. So they were barren, empty rooms with lots of tables and chairs. So bring your own stuff and be prepared, whether you're a player or a gamer. At my place, when I game, you'd be amazed at how many players would bring every copy of the books they had, knowing full well I had the whole library here. But they still, would bring their own stuff. A lot of players, they only own the player's handbook. The buy-in to the game is bare minimum player's handbook. Okay, that's it. Obviously dice, pencils, paper, that sort of thing. If not, I'll loan you some paper and pencils, that sort of thing. Dice, forget it. If you don't bring dice, you're not rolling shit. If someone wants to loan you a set of dice, it's not going to happen, because there's a good chance they'll miraculously disappear, or the player will forget to return them, or half of them are going to end up under the coffee table or under the couch, because people don't respect stuff that's not their own. If it's theirs, you can guarantee they're going to take care of it. Now, if I was to run like a game like this, which is my go-to fantasy game, I know it's old school, archaic, etc., but I've actually got a couple copies of the player's handbook, and I'll loan you the beat-up copy for the table. The rest are mine, or Jackie's, or what have you. But it's pretty much the same. Bring what you need, or I know you're not invested in the game. You're just there for a free, beer and pretzels kind of night activity. You're bored. You're going to go hang out with Shadow and see what's going on. Oh, they're playing a game. Oh, okay. I'll, whip. No. If you don't own a player's handbook or whatever book it is that you need to play the game, then I know you're not interested. And I'll tell you, you know what? Go out and give me go out and buy the book. Let me know when you get the book, and I'll bring it back into the game because I really don't like, certain kinds of distractions. And if I have to, pull out a book and hand it over to you, I don't mind you looking at the book, when it's not your turn kind of thing. But, if in the middle of a turn, you're like, hey, can I look this up? Like, no, you should have done that already. Or, maybe you can borrow, Betsy's book, she's sitting right next to you, borrow her book. But, if you're not going to buy in, for the most part, you can pick up your basic player's handbook, depending on the edition. It's not going to be an arm and a leg. And if you're really, a player's handbook like this one is going to cost you about $40 in this kind of condition, but you don't need it in that kind of condition. I've got this one right here. I've had this one for 40 plus years. Okay, I can literally almost bend it into a tube. It's got electrical tape and packing tape on it, but I wouldn't trade this for the world. I've had it since my very first game, and I'm gonna get buried with it. But like a third or fifth edition book, I've seen them as low as $10-15 on Amazon and things like that. You mean you can't cough up $20 to get into the game? Well, then you're probably not going to be able to afford, to get to the game. You're not going to be able to afford, snacks, etc. You're probably not ready, and maybe you got to, work on getting your life back on track before you think about, getting into a serious game.
All right. MarHawkman, when you are playing with your family at your family games, how do you handle how do you handle the rules as when you're making characters or handling your characters? Do you guys pass around a book? Do you guys all have your own version of the books? Do you use a copy machine and just copy out or print out those the character information you need? How do you guys handle it?
I mean, like for store stuff, I've actually seen people go so far as to take a college ruled notebook paper, look at a picture of the character sheet in the book, and then just sketch a copy of the character sheet onto college ruled notebook paper to hand make their own custom character sheet.
I've done that. I've done my
version. What everybody did in the beginning, there were no character sheets for the first decade.
But like for home games, though, it's like my siblings have their own like home office stuff, so we always have like materials to just like, oh, you need to print a copy of that. Okay, boom. Although with Star Trek Adventures, the real problem is that apparently they just haven't figured out what they want their characters to be, because it does life path character creation, and that mystifies my siblings for some reason. I don't understand why.
There's always something. Trust me, there's always something.
Well, no, it's that like we've been messing around with Star Trek Adventures for like 2 months now, and one of my sisters still hasn't finished her character. Why? I don't know. And my nephew only finished his because I'm like, okay, we're going to do this now. So tell me what you want to put in this box. Otherwise, his would have even less work done on it, because honestly, when he initially created the character, he basically didn't do anything other than write down a name on a sheet of paper.
That's when you throw out your entire family and go find a new one.
Well, again, though, that kind of like goes back to the thing I said earlier about how it's more about having fun with your family members than, playing the game.
Yeah, I get that. Jaide, you ready?
Yeah. So, as far as when I run a table, generally I own a laser printer. I know not a lot of people do, but because I do, I'm able to run off 30, 50, whatever, however many copies of character sheets that I need. Something I've been doing lately is for players who are new to Index Card RPG. I print little packets of Index Card RPG. Everything they need to make a character is in this packet, including on the very last page, the character sheet that is needed for play.
Okay, I'm going to stop over and get one of those.
It's got the spells, and it's all based on what setting I'm running. If I'm running Alfheim, like this has all of the Alfheim stuff in it. If I'm running Warp Shell, it'll have all of the Warp Shell stuff in it. It'll be a Warp Shell character sheet at the back. So when I run games, like I want my players to be prepared, and I'm not expecting them to go get this book, of Index Card RPG. Like, would it be awesome if they had their own copy? Absolutely, but I'm not going to expect them to go do it, to go purchase that. I know it's only like $22 for a hardcover copy of second edition or master edition rules, and you get a free PDF if you decide to go that route. But I don't need my players to own the player's handbook. I don't need them to own like all of the peripherals. I have a lot of that stuff, and I'll let them borrow it. And I have this standing rule, and I've had this standing rule for a very long time, that if you want to use something out of a Splat book or Dragon magazine or a specific book, that book must be in print and available to be thumbed through before, during, or after the game, preferably before or after the game, not typically during. But that book has to be physically available. I'm not going to go hunt it down for you. You have to bring it if you want to use it. But at that point, like, I do like having all of the stuff available for my players for the game I'm running. Now, if I'm limiting like specific classes out of the game, like, hey, no gunslingers, no ninjas, no samurais, no sohei, no shugenja or wujen. Don't want any of those at the table because that's not where this game's taking place at. Find other classes that are not those. So I will do that, but at the same time, like, I will provide what needs. Like, I've got a box that I set on the table. It's full of pencils. It's this M&M tin, and that tin has like 10, 15 pencils in it, all mechanical pencils. So I mean, I give my players everything they need. I've got 5, 6 sets of dice that I'll let them borrow for the night, as long as I get them back. Mostly because I'm interested in playing the game, and I don't care what it takes to get my players able to play the game. They don't own dice, fine. That, maybe Christmas I will get them a set, or their birthday. If they don't own the books, that's fine. I'll print whatever material that needs to be printed to have their butts at the seats at my table. Like, whatever it takes, I will do it, because I'm more interested in having my friends at the table and rolling dice and having a great time, because that's that's my interest. That's what brings me joy, is all of my tables and all of my friends at the table coming together and having a great time.
Great. Everybody has had some really great answers to these questions I've had tonight. We're not going to get through all of them because we're just not. And some of them are just not really worth asking. But I am thankful to you guys for taking time and answering these questions I have. I'm going to answer the last one on my part. If it is at home or at the shop, I don't have it right next to me, but I have folders, the old school folders. I think one has Wolverine from the X-Men, and I think the other one has like Batman, but they're full of character sheets. They're printed out character sheets for for players who are making new characters. If I know if a kid shows up more than 3 times that's at my table, more than 3 times. So on the 4th time he shows up, I have a small bag of dice waiting for him. That will be his dice. The place I game at sells dice individually, so it's a mismatched dice, and I think the reactions I've been getting from the kids, they really enjoy that. Somebody giving them their own dice, other than using the pool dice pool that I have. It's basically both dice in it, just for making life easier for the kids. I expect the grown-ups at least come with their own dice. I think it's a small thing to ask. But with kids who are just getting into the game, I treat them a little bit, with different gloves, I guess. Once again, I want to thank everybody that's here. Thanks for letting me hosting it tonight. This has been fun. It's been a while since I've had to do. It's been a while since I've been able to do this, and I'm gonna turn over the wheel over here to this guy over there, and he could take us out with all the questions he wants to ask.
Well, I don't really have many questions. So next week, I'm not going to be around. I have something very important that I need to be attending to. So I will not be available for Gatekeepers. So, one of them are going to have to run it. But if you've enjoyed this content tonight, please make sure to hit that like button. If you really enjoy the content that we produce, please consider subscribing to the channels listed here. And I will work with Cigardium to get the description updated with everyone's channel names, so you can subscribe to those easier. I haven't seen the description myself. So I hope everyone has had a great night. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for making Gatekeepers what it is. You, the chat, interacting with us and posing questions either in our Discord or on the episodes after they've aired really helps us, keep going. So thank you for that.
All right. Well, everybody out there, as he said, have a good night. Shadow, got anything going on this week?
Not sure about tomorrow with Table Breakers. Anybody have any idea if we're doing that?
I believe that's supposed to be talking about critical fumbles and how to make them interesting.
Yeah, we're doing fumbles.
But
That sounds fun.
To me, it sounds like a waste of time. But one rule and you're done. The chart nonsense. It's just going to slow the game down and probably make your players feel miserable. No, I meant with some of our members not being able to participate.
We'll still have a show. I'm more than positive we'll still have a show. Just topic might change. We'll work it out. We always do.
I mean, I personally had some really, really amusing experiences with critical fumbles in games. So.
Right. I get it. But the same thing with the, unless you're playing with a rule that backs it up, to make sure it's a fumble, it sounds like 1 in 20 shots are going to be fumbles, and that's just going to, slow the game down. Just not a fan. But
Well,
go ahead.
I was just going to say that particular example basically sidelined the entire combat encounter for several minutes because of the fact that a person managed to KO himself with a critical fumble. Yeah, that combat went south.
Right, and that's what's going to happen, in my opinion, eventually. Not if, but eventually. And I want a part of that.
All right. So, what about?
But I do have a craft video tomorrow night with the boy. We're going to be more or less finishing up the Tomb of the Lizard Kings terrain pieces that we're going to be sending out to a friend of ours, and then that's it until Saturday night, where I'll be doing another sci-fi shadow chat, and then of course Sunday be hanging out with Connell and the guys reviewing I think it's the 1990s movie, The Faculty.
Yes, The Faculty. before Frodo went home to Middle Earth. All right.
Other than that, the usual shenanigans, me and the boy doing the things.
All right. What about you, Jade? Okay. All right. Well, as he said, you'll find, well, at least 3 of us over at Table Breakers tomorrow. Then Friday, go hang out with Legion of Myth if you want to, because 10 to 1 we'll all be watching them, if not already on the panel. And Saturday, I will be gaming with Bruce over at his channel. We're fighting fire giants and that lot of bullshit. Yay. Not that I'm disappointed that I'm gaming. It's more of, I hate fire giants. Every game I'm in right now, I'm dealing with them. Anyways, every game. Then Sunday, we will be reviewing the Faculty 1890 high school sci-fi alien body snatcher type feel to it. It's fun. It has actors that are still kids that we've seen later on as they've grown up. And I'll probably be drinking a lot of beer. And Sunday is my birthday. So I expect to see all you fuckers on my show. In the chat telling me to go jump off a bridge with Dan. Something. I don't care. But I'm looking forward to seeing you all in chat. And everybody else in chat tonight, right? Thanks for having you. And I'm going to say good night.
Happy trails,
Good
folks.
night.